I'm Rhaea and I just competed at the IPF Open Equipped World Championships in Romania, where I won my 6th IPF Equipped Open World title. After the World Games this summer in August, it felt like a fairly quick turnaround to Worlds in November. There was a point in time through the summer, probably pre-World Games, that I wasn't sure if I would do Worlds this year. Just because of that quick turnaround, because of all of the pressure leading into the World Games. But then with how my lifting went there, I felt like I needed and wanted to do Worlds this year. Reflecting back a little bit more on my training leading into World Games, it had gone well until it didn't, and I started missing lifts. So I knew that there was a potential to better my total than what I did. Obviously my bench was my weak point at the World Games, so I really wanted this competition to sort of be redemption for that. So getting back into training after the World Games, starting to push things again for a relatively quick Worlds, felt pretty good. And mentally and physically, for the first little while, I was feeling really good. So at the end of September, beginning of October, my left knee started flaring up. I don't remember a specific injury, and there wasn't a specific set that I can recall that I heard it on, but something happened and I couldn't squat. I could get to about a quarter squat, and then the left knee would just cause so much pain and my body would be like, nope, we're not going any further. So there was definitely a lot of sessions that I just sort of played by ear depending on how my body was feeling. I was throwing all sorts of modalities at it to try and figure out what was going on and get it better. I never really figured out what was going on. Some days I could squat with minimal pain and was able to push a little bit, and then other days I wasn't able to get over 50 or 70 kilos and just had to shut it down just because of the pain. So it was really hit and miss whether I could squat. So my squat training leading in was not good, pretty minimal actually. I really don't know what was going on with my knee. I don't really have any explanation as to what exactly made it feel better and made me able to squat. But fingers crossed, that's now in the past. About 2 weeks out from Worlds, I was able to start squatting again with load, and it was okay. So I was able to get, I think, 2 solid sessions in heavy, sort of up to around an opener. And really I was hoping, like, going into Worlds, if I squat 240, I was gonna be happy because of how the last month had been. My bench prep for Worlds had been really good. Obviously there was a huge psychological component of not really making a clean attempt at the World Games. So I was trying to focus on execution in all of my training and just have confidence in it and just know that I know how to bench. I did put a different shirt on. It was the same size as what I wore at the World Games, but just a different shirt. Again, more for just the psychological aspect than anything. Training had gone really well. I had hit 220 really solid, possibly moved like an opener. I just didn't have the confidence to open at 220. So we opened at 212.5. More because Ryan forced me to open at 212.5. I wanted to stay at 210, but for a few reasons we decided to go with 212, partly just because of how the World Games went when I was opening at 210. And I also, if we wanted to have a shot at the world record, which was sort of the goal, we needed to open a little bit heavier. And then also with bench shirts, with more weight, sometimes the touch can be easier, so therefore the press is easier. So for a number of reasons, we opened at 212. I was pretty confident that we would be able to take a crack at the world record, partly because of how training had been going, and then partly because of the competition that was going to be there, and we didn't expect it to be a really close competition, so I could take bigger jumps on bench than maybe I have the last couple of years. Training for deadlifts going into Worlds had been sort of mediocre. Deadlift wasn't really affected by my knee, but it was a little bit affected by my knee, so I was still able to train it. I just don't think that it was quite as good as it was going into the World Games. But still, things were moving sort of as expected based on the circumstances with my body right at that time. Competition day at Worlds, my weigh-in was a little bit later, so I was able to sleep in and just sort of wake up. My body weight was well under 84, so I had a little bit of food, a bit of coffee before weigh-ins, and my body was feeling pretty good. I could feel my lower back a little bit on squat warm-ups, but that's happened the last couple of competitions, and I think some of it might just be nerves because I didn't notice it as far as like strength. It was just like, oh, I'm there, and really once I got to my heavy stuff, I wasn't noticing it at all. Warm-ups felt good for squats. My biggest concern was just getting depth and getting a lift in on squats. If I had just gotten my opener, I was going to be happy because of how squat training had gone leading into this. So I opened up with 240. It moved probably a little bit slower than I thought it would, but some of that I think is just nerves on that first attempt and making sure that, or trying to make sure that it's in there. So got the opener, we jumped 7.5 to 247.5 and got that lift as well. They all felt good. Really all of my squats, I would say, based on what I remember, they felt about the same. My third at 252.5 was, maybe there was a little bit more that day, but again, we were being maybe a little bit conservative just because of my knee. I was happy with hitting 252.5 because like I said, I didn't think I would hit 240 a month ago. A month ago, I didn't even know if I'd be able to do the bar to competition standards if I wanted to go that route. So to hit 252.5, which is only 5 kilos below my best, was a good day in my mind. Then we moved on to bench. Obviously, I was nervous about making my bench just because of how the World Games had gone. Warm-ups felt really good, but again, warm-ups had felt really good at the World Games. So there was definitely more nervousness than normal with my opener. But I just went out there, executed how I always hope to, and it moved really smooth. There's definitely a huge relief. I think on the live stream, you can see me like laughing and kick my head back as I walk off, just because Ryan and I knew how easy it should be and it moved that well. So we jumped 7.5 for my second bench to 220. And again, it moved really well. And then sort of stuck with the game plan of jumping to the world record on the third, which was 228.5. And really it moved better than I anticipated it would. Looking back at it, I wonder if like 235, maybe even 240 would have moved that day. I know I came off after, I think it was my second attempt, and said to Ryan, like, that felt how my benches used to feel, sort of effortless. Like I don't feel like I'm pressing, like it's just the right path and it's smooth. So that day my bench was obviously on and things were just moving well. With my third attempt, my left foot did slip as I was locking it out. I had a moment of concern as I was getting up off of the bench, wondering if my heel might have lifted as it slipped, but thankfully it was through white lights as I came off. After benching, obviously we rolled right into deadlift. My concern was just getting my opener. I knew that with my opener, that should secure gold for me overall. And then we could just sort of make jumps as needed and as wanted. So my opener moved well. It was maybe a little bit slow, but that's just me being apprehensive through the lockout, just making sure that there's no downward. So we jumped 10 from 200 to 210 for my second attempt. And I think that one moved better because I just pulled it a little bit more aggressively, less nerves because I had secured that total. Then after my second, it was sort of the decision of what do we want to do for my third? And up until that point, I don't think Ryan had really asked me what I wanted to do that day for my third. I was kind of presented with 3 options, but it was more just 2 options. 225 was what I needed to pull to take the world record total. And I think Ryan said that, and I was like, right away, I don't think 225's there. So that was out. And then it was either 217.5 or 220. So both of them would have given me a personal best total, but 220 would put me over 700. So I said, let's go with 220. I think I made Ryan check with all the other coaches that were there to make sure that they all thought that it was a reasonable call. But I was more excited to hit 700 than I was about a PB total. I would have been happy with the PB total, but I was more excited to try and go for 700 because it feels like something I've been chasing since the World Games 2022. So yeah, coming out for my third deadlift, once I cracked the floor, the position I was in, I was pretty confident that I could lock it out. It's funny how sometimes you can you get that feeling and that sense right away in the lift. It wasn't the speediest lockout, there wasn't a lot left there on deadlifts, but it definitely felt like the right number, and it gave me a 701 kilo total. The last time that I set the bench world record was back in 2022 at Worlds in Denmark, where I benched 228 kilos. And since then, I haven't been able to surpass that at Worlds or at an international event. I have done more than it twice. I did 228.5 at Nationals in 2022. My bench had obviously been going really well. Our Nationals was in May that year, and I actually jumped to 228.5 on my second attempt, missed it. I'd opened at 215 and then repeated it on my third attempt and got it on my third. So I benched 228.5 there, and also last year at Nationals in September, so 2024 Nationals in September, I benched 229 in the bench only portion of the event. It's been a while since I've done it on the international platform and set the world record. It felt really good to set it again. It's one of those things that I feel like I've been capable of a couple of times, but the opportunity hasn't presented itself. There's been situations where it's been a closer competition where I've just needed kilos and haven't been able to sort of take a swing at the world record. And then there's been some downtime where my bench just wasn't there. So it felt really good to hit that world record and sort of prove to myself that my work's not done, that there's still some numbers to be hit. 228.5 at Worlds definitely moved, I would say, the best that it's ever moved. A couple of people have asked me, like, do I think that there's a limit on what my bench is? And obviously there is. But that day I do feel like I probably could have benched 235 comfortably, maybe even 240, which those would be crazy numbers to hit. 240.5 is the biggest bench by a female in the IPF. That's in a bench only competition. And then 230 kilos is the biggest bench in a 3-lift competition. So obviously it would be cool to be able to surpass those numbers, especially as an 84 kilo lifter. There's obviously still the goal of beating the world record total at 84 as well. It wasn't there that day. I think with some jockeying of numbers, maybe in squat and bench, if there's a few more kilos there, we might have been able to hit it, but hindsight's always 20/20 on those things. To be within a couple of kilos of the world record total definitely felt good and sort of gave me some motivation and some confidence. Really, I was happy with all of my lifting from Worlds, considering my deadlift, the last 2 competitions, I've hit new personal bests. So that's felt really good, especially after years of sort of stagnation on my deadlift. I've joked with a few people that 2 more competitions and I'll finally pull 225, which would be awesome. To hit deadlift personal bests twice in the last 2 competitions feels really good, and it feels like there's still some room to keep progressing there. So I'm hopeful that my body will let me keep pushing deads and I can slowly become a better deadlifter. If it can not be as much of my weak link, I think that's exciting for me. Hitting 700 has been a goal for really a long time, it feels like. At the World Games 2022, I hit 697, so it was just about there. And then I feel like I haven't really been close to it, or it's not even been a possibility for the last couple of years. So to be able to hit that milestone, it felt really good. I can still remember when I was chasing 600 forever as well. It feels like from like 2008 to I want to say like 2017, I was chasing 600. I progressed through the low sixes pretty quickly, and then it's taken a while to get sort of to that next level. So it felt really good, and it feels good that it feels like there's a little bit more left there too, so it's not my absolute max, I hope. It's always hard after big championships to sort of figure out what's next. A lot of times the motivation is super high coming off, and then getting back to training, it's like, oh, okay, now we're back in the work of the daily grind, and there's no big competitions in sight, and that's when sometimes it becomes hard. There's a lot of opportunities next year to compete internationally with North Americans and Commonwealths in Canada. Then there's Worlds next fall, obviously. There's also a North American bench that's in Hawaii. That would be a nice trip. So for me, there's definitely equipped somewhere in the mix next year, just because of those opportunities to hopefully attempt to break the world record, whether in the bench only, bench press, or in the total. I've had the thought of maybe doing raw at nationals this year, just as sort of a breather from equipment to take a step back. But we'll see. We'll see what my body lets me do over the next few months. Obviously, with my knee randomly flaring up leading into Worlds, it gave me the reminder that at some point my body might not let me do this anymore. So we'll just see. Right now, with where I'm at in the sport, I am sort of taking it competition by competition. Like I talked about in the last set of videos that we did, like there's definitely been the thought of retirement in my mind.
What does my life look
I'm
like
not there
without
yet.
that?
Maybe I'm sort of preparing myself for that. But I'm just trying to take it sort of day by day, training session by training session, meet by meet, and see what opportunities come my way.